Two tears left eye, Dan. Two tears left eye. Poor, poor Omid Scabies. Well, you know, as the Jamaicans say, you spit in the sky, it will fall in your eye.
So let's start with a juicy headline that's been bubbling up: Royal Reconciliation. Sounds warm and fuzzy, doesn't it? Like tea with scones and polite smiles. But according to Tom Bauer and Robert Jobson, two guys who've spent decades reading the royals like other people read the sports section, this Peace Summit narrative is less about heartfelt forgiveness and more about PR spin gone wrong. Bauer calls it confection. Translation: a sugary story whipped up for headlines. And he suspects it came straight from Harry and Meghan's own camp, possibly via their aggressive PR rep, Meredith Maines. His theory? She doesn't quite get how the British royals operate, but she sure knows how to get a photo op in the Daily Mail.
I mean, he says he was being celebratory about the royals and never wrote anything negative. Is he not the person who managed to, by chicanery, leak the accusation that the King and Catherine were both racists?
I'm going to read you my favourite story of the week, and then I look forward to your reaction. I have to give credit to Richard Eden, the diary editor of the Mail, who has done some very good work on this one. Omid Scobie's new humiliation. Meghan and Harry's cheerleaders company meets a very undignified end. Richard Eden reveals all. Let's dive into this. He's been obliged to watch powerless as his favourite couple have been subjected to a fearful pummeling in print, which included being labelled the most entitled, disingenuous people on the planet by a Montecito neighbour. But as Omid Scobie digests Vanity Fair's profile of Prince Harry, lost, out of his depth and naive, and Meghan, working for whom is alleged to have caused some former staff members to undergo long-term therapy, might he have difficulties of his own to contend with? I ask, Richard Eden says, because Scobie's company, MeU, has been closed down after being on the receiving end of a compulsory strike-off notice in December. Seemingly indifferent to that warning, Scobie, who recently moved to California so that he's now, it's said, approximately 2 hours drive from Harry and Meghan, took no action. In consequence, MeU, which Scobie established in 2016 and of which he has always been the sole director, has been dissolved. This means that it ceases to have a legal owner, with the result that its bank account is frozen and any assets are passed to the Crown. It is a peculiar fate for an author who has had an intense, if changeable, relationship with the royal family. Back in 2020, he described the reporting of the monarchy as celebratory, adding that he'd challenge anyone to find a negative story he had written about the Windsors. 3 years later, he struck a much less celebratory note, saying it was important to write a full story without fear or favour, regardless of the consequences. While always a tireless cheerleader for Meghan and by association for Harry, Scobie appears to have taken a splendidly aristocratic attitude to niceties such as paperwork required by Companies House. December's compulsory strike-off notice was the fourth issued against MeU. Back in 2022, the company dodged being shut down by filing 3 sets of annual accounts in a single day in April that year. That may, of course, simply be because Scobie can appear ill at ease with numbers, even the number of birthdays he's celebrated. In 2020, he assured an interviewer that he was 33. In fact, he was 38. Now 43, and these are my words, looking weirder and weirder by the day. He declines to comment on the fate of MeU, but I can disclose, this is Richard Eden, that the Crown's treasure chest is not about to swell. The company had just £359 in its coffers when Scobie was troubled to file its account. Lady C, what do you think?
Step back and the pattern is obvious. Lawsuits, failed launches, rebrands, public spats. They're not underdogs anymore. They're liabilities. The palace doesn't trust them. The press doesn't trust them. And now even investors are backing away. The business world doesn't run on sentiment. It runs on stability and predictability. And Meghan and Harry's public image right now is neither. Instead of $1 billion Sussex brand, We've got a couple whose next headline is more likely to be about legal trouble or public fallout than a successful product launch. Bauer summed it up perfectly.
2 tears left eye, Dan. 2 tears left eye. poor Omid Scabies. Well, you know, as the Jamaicans say, you spit in the sky, it will fall in your eye. I mean, he says he was being celebratory about the royals and never wrote anything negative. Is he not the person who managed to, by chicanery, leak the accusation that the king and Catherine were both racists?
Oh, he was. Oh, yes, he was.
And also, you know, since he's moved to California, you notice his access to Megsy Baby and H has pretty much dried up. Maybe it dried up along with his association with Marcus Anderson, because, you know, they've said very interesting things about him and Marcus Anderson over the years. So I leave it at that, because he, of course, denies that the stories about him and Marcus Anderson were true. But I neither know nor care what people like that do with themselves. I couldn't care less. But I do care what he does with other people. And I think never was failure more richly deserved. And it's wonderful that he's getting his just deserts. And I actually think Richard Eden's done a very good job. And rather witty too, don't you think?
He has. I thought it was very much worth sharing that reportage from Richard Eden today. Indeed, I don't always agree with everything he says or writes, but on Omid Scobie, he has been spot on, as have you. You've got to go and follow Lady Colin Campbell's YouTube channel. Much, much more analysis of what was really going on at the Invictus Games. But Lady C, you know I always love having you on Outspoken, and we will speak very soon.
Meghan is a fighter, relentless, driven, unflappable in public. But strength without direction isn't strategy. And right now, her direction looks less like a plan and more like a hurricane in designer heels. If there's a window for any sort of truce, it's small. Harry's next UK trip in September for the World Child Awards could be it. Maybe even a quiet Balmoral visit. But William's position seems set in stone, and Camilla's protective instincts aren't going anywhere. At best, we might see a one-off private conversation between father and son. At worst, we'll see more photo ops spun as healing moments while the real rift remains untouched. Because until Harry accepts responsibility and Meghan stops treating the royal connection like a brand asset, the palace door will stay mostly shut. In short, we've got a prince desperate to come home, a wife who's already made it and doesn't care, a king torn between guilt and practicality, an heir who wants a moat widened, and a brand that's burning through goodwill faster than it burns through cash. It's not reconciliation. It's survival mode for both the monarchy and the Sussexes,